Four of those workers were shot dead by police at the koppie in Marikana on the 16th of August. This year, parts of the commemoration will be held virtually. Let's take you to the live event.
Consequences that has killed tens of thousands of black mine workers across the Southern African region, who've devastated communities from Malawi to South Africa to Lesotho for 150 years. Because when we do have a public holiday, we want to remember, we don't want to forget what mining has done to the people of the Southern African region. We also want to remember that even today, despite what happened at Marikana, it is business as usual as far as the mining companies are concerned, in terms of the impact on the lives of people who go down to extract the riches, not for themselves, but for the Sibanye still waters of the world. But we also want to make a very clear signal in demanding a public holiday, that what we want to bring to the fore is the continuous devastation that the mining companies are having on the environment of our country and the world. They're destroying the environment every second of the day. And so when we think of justice, when we think of why we want a public holiday, it's because we want to bring all of these things together, because Marikana allows us to pull all of these things together and say a very clear no to the exploitation of mining, by mining, to the devastation by mining on black people, to the devastation of the mining companies on our environment. Finally, because I realize that my 9 minutes are almost over. When we talk about justice for Marikana, we need to remember that when the massacre happened, that what drove the massacre ultimately was a desire by the mining company to maximize its profits. What drove the democratic government to support that was because they support profit over the lives of people. And it's that very system of profit before people that is the reason for the continuous expansion of inequality in the country. Now, over the last 18 months, that poverty, that devastation on black lives, on poor people, and particularly on women, have been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is why, even before COVID-19 hit us, Comrade Matunjwa and other comrades from AMCU joined hands with movements of the unemployed, with comrades Wedenzima Vavi of SAFTU, and many other movements in the movement called the Cry of the Excluded, in order to amplify the voices of the poorest of the poor, of the millions of people who are unemployed and will probably remain unemployed in the system. It is why when we come together and we think about what we do between commemorations, that it's critical that AMCU continues to play the leadership that is shown, not only in Marikana and in the mining sector, but in the country as a whole, to help pull together all of these movements and campaign for real changes, for genuine changes to the system. And an important campaign that we need to pull together almost immediately as part of our desire to have justice, not only for Marikana, not only for the widows, not only for the miners, but for all poor people in this country, is to ensure that we begin a big campaign for basic income grant. We need to come together, because in that way, the kind of justice that we want will be the justice that will speak truly, substantively to the needs of poor people in Marikana, in the Eastern Cape, and across the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Niftagodim. We will go to the next speaker. Can you display the next speaker? A message of support. Thank you.
Amandla. First and foremost, I want to thank with absolute sincerity President Mutunjwa and AMCU for continuing the struggle for justice. You started the struggle, you fought, and you continue to fight. For that, we honor you, and I want to celebrate the workers. I want to greet the widows who are there and say, please, we stand with you, we support you, and your struggle is our struggle. Because we live in a country where government has long forgotten its people. And when the theme of today still remains, their blood still cries out from the grave, I send my words of condolences to you, for you, it is the empty and the lonely nights that remind you of such a tragic day. 9 years on, still no justice. We live in a government that relegates the life of an African to a life that is less than, that is subhuman. And I want to join fellow South Africans and Africans when we stand up and we say, miners' lives matter. We cannot cheapen the lives of miners, all in the interest of extracting resources for the benefits of a few at the expense of the many. And I want to say, as Africans and as South Africans, we need to stand up now and send a strong message to this government to say, we dare never forget, and we remind you again of a theme, that miners' lives matter. Fellow South Africans and President and Program Director, our tragedy today, 9 years on, says that still we have a leadership and a government that's still beset on empty promises. You see, I was there on the day when Ria Piaga gave the press statement the day after the massacre. I asked her that day, I said to her, Ria, who gave the order to send mortuaries and to send bullets to the people? She still could not answer. I still have not gotten answers. And I know for a fact that we have a government that favors politicians rather than the people. That's why none of them have been arrested and none of them have been charged, whilst in fact the orders would have come from the top to ensure that live ammunition in a democratic government was used against the poor of this nation who were simply demanding not just a wage, but dignity. Not just dignity, but the fact that apartheid and mining told them to leave their loved ones back in the villages to come and work in Marikana. They were seeking for compensation for such an immense sacrifice. And that today, no one has been arrested. Dare never make us forget that we have a government that sides with the politicians rather than with the people. A government that sides with the ANC rather than the hungry and the poor Black Africans in this country. 55% of our people are still living on 1,138. Yet if you were to look at our minerals, you would say we are some of the wealthiest nation in the world. How can that be? Fellow Africans, we were promised action after Marikana. Still nothing has happened. We were promised a president who was going to come and apologize. Still nothing has happened. We cannot wait anymore. We must stand up collectively and say it is time for us to take action. For all intensive purposes, we still today in Marikana, nothing has changed. Instead, our people are living in worse conditions. They are still drinking water with animals in the country of their birth. And I want to honor the lives of those who died on that day and say their sacrifices should never be in vain. And it ought to be the stain and the scar in this government till the day comes that we bring change. We maintain we must always stand on the side of the marginalized. Our crisis in this country is that we face a deepening level of poverty, and yet nothing seems to be done by this government. I want to say, President Mutunjwa, I want to say to Omama, to say we demand nothing less than compensation. That a compensation fund must be established, Bomama. Ningaxoli, because their blood still speaks from the grave. We demand compensation for every life that was lost on the day. We furthermore say, if South Africa is to heal, we best today make today a commemoration day, a public holiday. We maybe not need May Day, but what we need is Marikana Day. Because if they forget, they are going to do it again as they are doing it during COVID, where our people's rights are being subjected. We furthermore demand that it's not a question of compensation, but that miners must be given equity in mining companies. If we do that, it would have been a different story today, that mine widowers would have at least an equity and shareholding for every ounce of gold that is exported out of this country. And I want to support the previous speaker who suggests that we do need a basic income grant. It cannot be that if more than 55% of our people are living on 1,138, that in fact we should carry on without shielding the most vulnerable from poverty. I draw inspiration from the people of Zambia, who said when they are unhappy with the government, they will bring change. I stand with those who say elections must proceed, because when they proceed, we can bring change in Marikana and bring about a new government so that the conditions of our people can be improved. We will no longer be hell-bent on this liberation story where people carry on telling us that they freed us, therefore we owe them loyalty for life. We stand with our Kenyan brothers who say at first we must be liberated and then we must liberate ourselves from the liberators. This is our moment, and I will not rest until those who even stand up and say the line has been drawn on corruption. I say where? Corruption is still carrying on. Our people are still hungry. Looting still continues. The professional looters are walking around freely, and instead they go after our people. Fellow South Africans, this is a moment. This is a time. President Mutunjwa, I stand with you. I support the people, Ndito Mama, and all the widows of those who lost loved ones. I send my deep condolences. And I say this once and for all, that it is time that we see a post-ANC South Africa, a post-liberation South Africa, because if we don't, they will keep perpetuating injustices, and our people will start to wonder what the price of freedom is and why so many had to pay. I support you, I stand with you, and I thank you for the kind privilege to address this esteemed occasion. And we prepare for the 10th anniversary as we continue to say, Aluta continua, and that miners' lives matter. Amandla! Thank you very much.